Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back again for this is the number 3 of this series that I'm running, which is sort of talking about how to run a successful wedding and portrait photography business. We're starting off with hardware, and the other day I went through all of the camera gear and lenses that you need. And today we're going to look at flash and continuous lighting. Tomorrow we're actually going to look at the modifiers for the lighting, so we'll look at that actually tomorrow, but today I'm just going to sort of talk about what flash systems I use and things like that as well. I'll just say hi to a few of these people. Carl's there. Hi Carl. Ben's here. Michael is. Delta Dave's here. Gigi is there. So we've got Stacks now coming on board. Guys, if you can, please give us a like. Let's see if we can get some more involved. Now, yesterday I was going through lenses with you, and I did neglect to show one lens, and someone made a comment. I can't remember who it was, but I showed all the lenses that I use, but I did forget to show the macro that I use. This is a 30mm macro. Now, it's very, very small and very, very light. It is 30mm though, and I had a comment about that when I was talking about it. This really though is only useful for me in a wedding scenario where I'm shooting things like rings and detail in flowers and things like that. This certainly would be no good if you were trying to shoot insects and things like that, but for what I use it for, this is just ideal. Someone made a comment saying, what I think about the 50. I have got a 105 macro lens, which is a Sigma, but I never use it. It's the only non-Sony lens that I've got. So this one is the main one that I use. So I just wanted to bring that up in case if you're wondering what I use for macro. This is a 3.5 aperture, and it's a 30mm. The aperture doesn't really matter that much because you shoot with a very closed aperture when you're doing macro because everything becomes out of focus very quickly. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that, so I thought I'd talk to you about that. So today we're going to start going through what flash systems that I use, which ones sort of I recommend being a Sony shooter particularly, but I'm also going to show some others too from the people that are coming from the Canon area and Nikon and Fuji, etc. So we're going to look at that as well. But I thought we'd start talking about lighting, well, what basically the different types there are. So I'm just going to switch over to my desktop, and I want to basically just talk to you about the different types. So if we're talking about flash and continuous, I really wish I could write neater. Or you could also say constant lighting here as well. There's two main things that I use now, and it is mostly this flash and continuous lighting. Now, when I start taking you through the shoots later on, I will show you how I use each one in a wedding scenario. So I'll sort of discuss, I'll go through a shoot and I'll break it down where I use flash and where I use continuous, and with diagrams and stuff like that, and I'll actually show you how that I use them in a weddings and also portraits, so that you can see how I light them up and what I use to light them up, because for different things I use different lighting. And so I wanted to sort of talk to you about this. So if we're looking at it through these type of things, your main flash things like strobes and flashlights. All right, they're the main two lightings, systems that you have for if you're talking about the flash area. So if we're dealing with this, we're talking about flash. It's awkward drawing with this pen. It's really different. I'm used to writing on a whiteboard, but we can look at it this way anyway. You'll get the idea. So the main two that I use are strobes and flashlights. Now, they are used for two different things. If I'm talking about working very, very fast and quick, I'm going to be using mostly flashlights. If I have more time and I want to have much more power, I'll start to go to strobes. And I will break these down and you'll sort of see how they actually work. Again, you can ask some questions, guys, if you want to know what we're actually going to look at, or if you'd like me to cover anything in particular or discuss anything, we can go through that as well. But they're the main things. So I'm just going to delete this for a second. And we can keep going. So let's first look at flash. So we'll look at that before we look at continuous light. All right, and we'll start to look at just your normal flashlight. I mean, they are still strobes, but I'm just going to call them flashlights in this case because I don't want you to get mixed up between that and you know, your larger strobes that we can actually look at. Now, there's some main ones that I'm going to show you, and I'm going to bring up Safari, and I'll take you through some flash units that you can look at. Now I'm going to take you through the different brands here. So we'll look at Sony, and they have a number of different brands. Now don't worry about the pricing here because I'm not sure whether these are Australian too, guys. So these aren't what you'll pay in the US or the UK. They'll be dearer down here. So don't freak out when you look at the prices of these things. Yeah, Speedlights. Yep. So the flash that I'm looking at now is Speedlights. I'll just go back and change that just on here so that you can get it. All right, so Speedlights. I shouldn't really say flashlights because that starts to sound like a torch. So it's a bit of terminology difference. But basically, these are the Sony ones that are out there. There's the HLV20. Now, these tend to go up in cost as they get more power and more features. I did discuss this FVL43 flash the other day in the fact that they're starting to be able to use this light at the front to help with focusing in low light conditions. So it's the first time they've started to add that back. It's the only one that's available for the Sony system. So I tend to always buy the best that I can. So I've bought these ones, which is the FL60 M's, and I've got 3 of these units. Originally, when they came out, they had overheating problems, but there was firmware upgrades that have been done that now they never ever overheat. The initial ones, I believe, if you kept shooting continuously, they would overheat. So these are the main Sony ones, but there's also another wireless light that's come out just recently, or wireless system that Sony have brought out that enable you to run this. None of these flashlights or speedlights work with off-camera flash alone. They have to have adapters, and I'll show you that when I start to bring the adapters in a little bit later on. But they're the Sony lights that you have. There's a new Sony wireless remote controller that you can use here that will give you your off-camera flash, and I'm going to show you the ones that I use. I don't use the Sony ones. There's also, if you're going to go to Fujifilm, these are the Fujifilm flashlights that you have as well. So again, obviously as you're going to go up, they're going to get more expensive depending on what features and power that you have. So Fuji have a stack of range of lights as well. I can't comment on how good these are because I only shoot Sony now. I did used to shoot Nikon, so I can talk about those, but I've got that. Delta Dave said, do you shoot them alone or with battery packs? No, I don't use battery packs, Dave. I only use internal batteries because I just want to keep everything as light as possible. So, yeah, I've never had an issue with the batteries, though, and recycling, because I do tend to shoot a little bit slower. I'm not just shoot and burn or, just bang, 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 bang. I take my time, so I've never really had a refresh problem or overheating with the batteries, but I know you can get batteries if you want to. They can put them on your lap or something on a belt on the side, and you can run them all day without changing batteries. I tend to only change batteries once in them a day, so I only have to go through one set of batteries for the whole day. I just change once, usually before the reception. So that's Fuji. If we look at Canon, Canon have a whole range as well. I know Canon can work, and I'm not sure which one it is. It might be their highest end one, which could be this one. I'm not sure if the others do, but they will work wirelessly without an adapter on their own. So that's one big advantage with the Canon system, that you don't need an adapter, and I will show you that as well. Tony Bricks said, each brand of Speedlight compatible with each other camera or the same brand? Well, I can only talk about the Sony and Nikon. I've found Sony and Nikon are because I had the Nikon flashes for a while, and I used them on my Sony camera, but they only work in manual. So you can't use the things like TTL or, high-speed sync. But you can work in manual exposure. So that's an issue. If you're happy with that, you can use it. I'm not sure if the Canon lights will work on the Sony. I'm not sure whether the pins are different. It depends on the pin system. So if anyone has used the Canon, you might be able to say in the comments, guys, that you can let me know if the Canon lights, speed lights, will work on the Sony system. I know the Nikon ones did. That I had the... I'll tell you which one in a second. I can't remember the model number, but I'll bring that up in a second when we look at the Nikon ones. So they're all the Sony ones. Like I said, the Canon one has a big advantage in that it has its wireless built in. That's probably that one. I'm not sure about the model down. So someone that's a Canon shooter may be able to let us know. And then Nikon has all of these versions. I used to have the SB 900, and that worked really, really well on my Sony cameras, but like I said, I couldn't do TTL and I couldn't do high-speed sync. That's why I bought the Sony lights and traded in the Nikon lights that I had, but I was using that one. And again, I don't think any of the Nikon flashes have wireless built in. Now, there are some other third-party ones, and I'm not going to go through all of these, guys, because we'll be here for 5 hours, but there is ones like... Flashpoint also will do multiple systems that you can use as well. And I think some of these also have wireless built into them, so you don't have to go through using an adapter. Again, I haven't got these and I haven't tried these, so I can't tell you what these lights are like, but it does give HSS and TTL for Sony. And there's also Godox as well, which has a fairly good system out as well. It works with Sony, and obviously it'll work with other cameras too. This Evolve 200 that's out. The 200 is the wattage that's actually giving you from these flashes, and there'll be heaps of reviews on the net if you want to look at these reviews and how they work. I don't use any of these systems, so I just thought I'd like to show you that, just as a general thing to show you what's available in the marketplace now. Yeah, so that's it. So I've answered those questions. So let's go back, and I'm going to start showing you some of the flashes that I use. Again, don't forget, it's like the other systems too, that when you're dealing with wedding photography or portrait photography, you do have to have a backup. So just take that in mind when you're buying this gear. There's no point having one flash, because if that flash fails or it did overheat or something happens, you need a second flash. Now, it may not have to be as good as the first flash you have, but it's still got to be good enough to get you through the day in case if an emergency happens. Dougal Dave said Flashpoint is a rebranded Godox. Oh, okay, there you go. Godox rebadged these for Adorama. Oh, that's good. Okay, I've also got one that I'll talk about later that I think is a rebranded Flashpoint as well. We also name things different down here as well, Dave. So, yeah. So let's start talking first. We'll start going through your normal flashlights first, or your speed lights. So basically, the ones, like I said, I've been using this one, which is the HLV 60. Now, the beauty of running these when they can go like that is you can bounce the flash actually off the ceiling, and that's one really big thing with these, is that you never really want to be flying that flash directly into the face, because it's not flattering at all. And you would be surprised if you have a wall behind you, like this white wall behind me would be ample even from this distance, that I could shoot that back like that. So if I'm shooting this way, I could easily shoot this off the back of that wall, and it will basically light someone up. So you can do things like that too. I can also basically tilt them and, go sideways. This is the great thing with the Sony flash, that if I go this way, I can then go this way and do that. And also it has a flashlight that's built into here as well. So if I wanted to light something up, I can also use this and control the intensity of that as well. And it has a little diffuser panel that sits over the top. So this is your Speedlight for Sony. Now, just remember that you should only use this on your camera if you're really running and gunning, and I do use this in the reception. So when I'm doing receptions, I'll be running around shooting portraits and things like that of all the people sitting on the tables and things like that, and I'm always running around shooting it with this on camera. Any other time I always will take it off camera. So when I do that, what I've got to do is you've got to start thinking about a system to be able to get it off your camera, and that's where I use Photex for me. This is the Commander that's actually out, so this is what sits on your camera. So I'll just take this other one off. So with the commander, basically you'll stick this onto, I've got the cover on it. So you'll stick this onto the actual camera like that, make sure you lock it on. And then what you'll do then is the flash has a receiver unit which sits on the bottom, and then they can talk to one another that way. So therefore what you can do then is you can shoot like this and have the camera off to one side, which gives you the ability to run this off camera. Now, if you have multiple ones of these like I have one for my 3 flashes, you can set up 3 flashes independently. And you can do that because on the side here you've got groups that you can set, and also on the other side you've got channels that you can set. So you can set these so that they have all different channels and groups. So you could have, for instance, one behind the bride, and I do this all the time and light the bride up from the background. That could be controlled separately to the flash that you have out the front, and you could also have a key light that's sitting up on the hair. So you can use multiple lights that way, and you can actually get them to all talk through this commander as well. Like I said, you can set the groups on the commander. I'll just take this off so I can show you. On the commander, I haven't got batteries in this, but you can sort of see on the commander up the top, there's groups up the top through here. You can control here from TTL. There's a HSS switch that you can set down here as well. And you can also do zoom. You can do the zoom and everything, and there's a test button. So that you can set this up and fire the test off and just make sure your lights are actually all talking. So it's interesting. When you tilt the head back, yes, you do lose HSS, Delta Dave. Yep, you do. You've got to be careful with this system, and it took me a while to work that out when I first moved over to Sony, that if I'm working like this, you lose HSS. But then again, to be totally honest, you're never going to be shooting HSS with this pointing up anyway, because if you're going to be shooting HSS, you're going to really be overpowering the sun. So if you're doing that, you're going to need as much power as you can. And to be honest, that's the time where you will face that directly towards the model or the talent or the bride. So really, it's not an issue. I thought that initially too, that it was an issue that you lost HSS when you did that. But when I thought about it, I thought, well, whenever I'm trying to overpower the sun to get that HSS look, I always need as much power out of these as I can get. So I'm always pointing that towards the actual bride or groom, if that makes sense. So you do have to think about that. But yeah, it took me a while to work out why I could not get HSS when it was pointing up. But you lose so much power doing that, you'd never overpower the sun. So that's another issue. Now, there's one thing that I do want to talk to you about, is this system here, the diffuser panel, which I tend to use this all the time if I want to diffuse the light and have it very, very soft. But there's one thing that you do have to do, and this is one thing with your wedding photography in particular. If you're shooting in nice lighting, it might be a nice warm incandescent light, well then you have to start thinking about putting filters onto here to enable you to match the lighting, because there's no point balancing your light in to get that nice warm yellow and then you fire off a nice white light. It's going to overpower and it looks terrible and it just looks odd. So what you need to do is you need to buy from somewhere just to get these little filters, and I've got stacks of these different ones, different strengths, and all I'll do is basically stick them on and then I'll put the top back on, and then it's controlled, balanced to the lighting. I have different strengths from 5, 10, 15, 20 up, and I just bought them from a camera shop. I'm sure you'll be able to find that a little bit later on. So basically think about that too. Never underestimate having to balance your light. So you should have these no matter what system you're using, whether it's your bigger strobes, whether it's just your lights like this, speed lights. Make sure you're always balanced. Even continuous light you have to balance as well. Ben said, have you used the mag mod system? No, I haven't, Ben. I'm going to show modifiers tomorrow. So I will show them tomorrow, the ones that I use. Now, I'm going to be probably showing a lot of Profoto stuff. I will show you some of the ones I use for the Bowens mount as well. But it doesn't really matter what brand they are because they all do the same thing. So you just have to find an equivalent unit to what you're using. So I will show flash modifiers tomorrow. And Kieran said, is lighting actually that important? Yes, it is, incredibly. And then she just said that was a silly question. Well, not really. Look, don't think anything's silly to ask. If you're learning, nothing is silly. I have to be honest, I classify myself as an expert in lighting. I've been involved with lighting for a long time. I also understand colour theory extensively. I actually taught colour theory in university, so I understand colour theory as well. So lighting for me is a very critical thing, and it is one thing that if you want to separate yourselves from other people in your market, that you have to learn how to do lighting very, very well, and it takes a lot of practice, and you must practice, practice, practice. But I think it's the difference between being an average photographer and an excellent photographer. I'm not saying you can't do amazing work with natural light. You can. But then again, I don't think there's anything really that is natural light. Light is light. Doesn't matter if it comes from this or from anything else. The difference is I control where the light comes from. And if it's a horrible grey, dull day, I can make mood or whatever I want to do. I can overpower the sun. I can do all different things. And the only way you can do that is by using strobes. Delta Dave said, how much do you use using the diffuser cap? No, I'm not sure, to be honest. I've never measured it. It's probably around about a stop. Sometimes, though, if it really becomes an issue, I'll use an elastic band, and I'll take this off, and I'll do that, Dave. So I can run it just with an elastic band around the top. That's why I have, on this one, you'll notice there's an elastic band there. That's so I can just immediately put this filter over the top if I wanted to do that. So they're the two systems of flashes that I use, obviously on camera and off camera. And like I said, later on when we start going through the training of showing you how I go through the shoots, I'll talk to you about where I use each one, and it'll be mentioned that way. We can't do that at this stage because it's still a bit early. I'm just going to put those down. Now those filters, like I said, I've got stacks and stacks of all of these different colour filters. If I want to, I can add multiple ones together. Say, for instance, I thought it wasn't strong enough, so what I can then do is put two together, and you'll see that, it becomes stronger. Like I said, it's very important to balance, and that's where I've seen a lot of people make mistakes with particularly wedding photography or even portraits where you're shooting at night and doing things. They don't balance for the ambient, and you have to match that ambient with your flashes and continuous lights. So that's something that you really do need to learn, guys, if you're going to get serious in this business. It's a critical thing to do, and it makes the world of difference balancing your ambient with your flash power. Ben said you need the mag mods, much simpler to attach filters, grids, etc. I have to look at that, Ben. I have got some. They may just be called a different thing. I'll show them tomorrow, and I'll give you a look, because I have got some that I use as well. So it might be similar to what you're actually saying. So let me put that down. Now, the next step up that I use is we'll start to look at your larger strobes, and we can look at this. Now, this one here is the... This is the Jimbai, but I think you call this one a Flash Pro, if that's correct in America, the States. I'm not sure what it would be called in the UK, but I know here they're called Jimbai here, and I think they're Flash Pros. This is the 600V. They have a Bowen's mount, which means they've got lugs that sort of sit through here that you can put on. Now, I hate this mount, but it's just a personal thing. It's easy to get this on, but when you're dealing with larger modifiers, I always struggle to get them in, and I always find them a little bit flimsy, and you can't really just rotate them around and stuff. But I mean, that's it. But the thing is, it works well, and there's a million light modifiers out there that you can actually use. This is a battery pack one. So if you're looking at this, there's a battery that sits in the back here. This will give me TTL and HSS for the Sony system, and obviously it would work with, I'd say, with Canon and Nikon as well if you had the correct transceiver. I just have to use, to get this to work with the Sony, I have to use these, which is the Pixel King, and I just basically use the lead directly into the sync port at the back. So what you do is I just attach it through here to the back, and then I'll just use this is why it's got that rubber band on there. I'll just put that onto the top there, and it gives me HSS and TTL. Yeah, is it Flashpoint Rove Light, is it? Yeah, I wasn't sure what it was actually called in America, but yeah, these are Jimbai here. Great little unit. The only reason why I don't like to use this so much, I used this initially when I wanted to get TTL, it wasn't even TTL actually, to be honest. It was just a high-speed sync on the Sony system because there was nothing available at the time. This gave me that ability to do that. It is a 600 watt strobe, so it's really quite powerful. But the resync time on this unit is very incredibly slow compared to my Profoto. The other thing too is I've found sometimes it's just not accurate enough in that I'll fire off 2 shots reasonably quickly, and I've found that the colour can change a little bit between exposures, and I don't like that too much. I'm a bit of a perfectionist, but this is much, much cheaper. I can't remember what these are even worth now because I've had this for around about 12 months, but I think it was around about $500 or something like that. So it's, it's quite cheap. But if you were out for starting in wedding photography or portrait photography, there's nothing at all wrong with going for a system like this. Remember, you don't have to buy the high-end gear to learn and to start. But if you are thinking about overpowering the sun, rather than having, 5 or 6 of these, probably even more, you can then just use one flashlight like this, and it's still battery operated, and get the results that you need. So don't think you have to buy the highest end gear. I'm still going to show you the gear that I have, but you don't have to buy that because it will give you in the end the same result. I know Carl said these crazy naming conventions. I know everyone's different and it's all different depending on where you are. But that system works really, really well. You've just got to remember if you have this to press a couple of different buttons on the back to bring up the high-speed sync. And then there's different modifiers, which, like I said, I'll show modifiers tomorrow. So we'll look at that. Of course, just make sure if you are buying into this system that you buy spare batteries. No point ever just having one battery, guys. So just make sure you have got multiple backups, and that's why I bought a second battery as well. There'd be nothing worse than being on a shoot and then you run out of batteries. So I made sure that I did get a second battery. Again, though, sometimes I'd be using this and then I'd switch to my, your normal speedlights as well. So you've got sort of multiple things that you can try. Hi, Keith. How are you? Now, the other light that I wanted to show you is the Profoto. So we'll look at this one. So this is the B1. This has an internal battery which is actually sitting up here, which is there. You can upgrade the firmware on these. I've just recently upgraded the firmware on these lights to give me TTL and HSS on the Sony system. The battery just clicks in. Now, there's a new battery available for this. There's a new model of this that's just come out, which is the B1X, I think, or BX or something. It's basically exactly the same unit. So if you can get these units cheaper, I'd jump at them because they're the same unit. The only difference is I think the light at the front has become more powerful. This is the, I'm talking about the LED for your modelling light. And the battery's more powerful, but the new batteries can be used on this. So you can buy the new batteries and put it onto this unit. And now, the beauty of this flash is that the Profoto are updating it all the time. Like, they just added the ability to use HSS from the full range of Sony powers. So it'll go from basically 2 up to 10. I'll just show you how this works anyway. You basically just turn it on at the back like that. Your power is from here. Now, your modelling light on these is actually fantastic because I actually use this modelling light. I can turn it up, but you won't see it much in this. But I actually use this modelling light sometimes to light things for an actual photograph. And they're great sometimes at a pinch to use for in the reception where I can light them up as well. So, it works really, really good. And that's the modelling light. Almost indestructible, these. I've dropped these, it's terrible, but I've dropped these so many times and they've survived. They're built like a tank. They've got this beautiful little handle that sits underneath here. Now, I've got 3 of these. Now, look, like I said before to you guys, you don't have to, please don't think that you've got to get this sort of gear to do it. I've been going for a long, long time and I've built that wealth up in my business. And I can justify this with the expense. There's no reason why if you're starting out you can't get that other light that I'm showing. I'm just going to show you what I use. But like I said, even with the modifiers tomorrow that I show you, a lot of them will be Profoto, but you would just get the same units for the Bowens mount or whatever you were going to use. The thing that I love about this, though, is that everything with the Profoto just goes on like that straight away. It's so easy to put on. This is a grid that you'll see if I turn the modelling light back on. So I've got the ability to control where that light goes. You know, you've got stuff like that. In here, you've got little packs that you can buy, which are your actual, like I said, matching for your filters that go over the top of the thing, and they'll just sit on the front of the actual light itself. So they're just great systems. You know, you've got the full range if you're going from fluorescent light up to, you know, blue lighting, up to, you know, special lighting, whatever you wanted to actually go through. And they just fit in a little pack that sits on the camera itself, just like this, that goes onto the front of the on the front of the Profoto unit. So, I mean, at the end of the day, you get what you pay for, and this is what I'm saying. If you had the money, well, clearly you would want to go for something that's very high-ended. These units are only 500 watts, though, so that other light unit that I showed you was 600, but I'm dealing with multiple of these lights, so if I want to power the sun, I could do anywhere and have enough power to overpower the sun. I can use them all together, and I could do anything with them. The other thing, too, with these is this will do 11 frames per second, so this is faster than what I can shoot with my A6 500 or A6 300, incredibly fast in sync, and it refreshes in a matter of, well, you don't even have to think about it. It'll go full power and refresh instantly. You know, it's very, 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 very fast. Super quick. And that's I suppose that's one of the things that you're actually paying for. Now, some people are going to go on about, well, it's incredibly expensive, but again, if you're justifying it as a business, it's for me, I can justify it. That's the Profoto unit that sits on top of the camera. Now, you do have to get one of these units per camera system that you've got. This is the Sony mount one. It will actually say Sony on the side. If you have a Nikon, you buy the Nikon one. If you have a Canon, you'd buy the Canon ones. And there's also now, I believe, an Olympus one that they've just released. So they're actually supporting Olympus. Fuji, I suppose, eventually may come out. Kieran said, how do you suggest people learn more about the importance of lighting? Any suggestions on getting started? You just have to do courses, Kieran. And basically, I wouldn't suggest so much online. You really need to practice it in person. I'm running a workshop here in about 2 weeks' time, but you'd obviously have to be here in Australia. I'm doing one here with a small group of people. But the only way really to learn is to try it. Go to a workshop and then try it yourself. Just keep practicing. Yeah, so they're the lights that you use. Now, like I said, I can use my Nikon one on the Sony camera, but I only can shoot in manual, whereas this gives me HSS and TTL. So that's what I wanted to talk to you about, strobes. So you've sort of seen the strobes that I actually use. Now, I've also got Profoto D1s as well, which are a little bit different. I'll just grab it. Bear with me. So these are the D1s. So these are the studio version of the lights. If I take them off, I'll take this off so you can just see it. So these are powered, so these actually have a wire that will go into the wall. So they're not battery, these ones, but they still run exactly the same way. But these won't do TTL or HSS because they're designed basically for a studio. So these will work in a studio. These are also 500 watt units, and I also have a 1000 watt unit as well in my studio. I've got a number of these that I run in my studio. So they are different to what the B1s are. The B1s are more portable in that you can take them outside without a battery. I mean, you could run these off a battery if you wanted to plug into a portable battery pack, but, you know, I don't want to do that. So they're the Profoto ones. So that was the D1, and the other ones that I showed you were the B1s. And like I said, there's all different versions of these in there as well. Like I said, and even when they upgrade them, I probably won't update mine for a long, long time because they never fail, and they're just as good as the day I bought them. So, you know, I'll probably not upgrade to the new versions that come out. Now, let's have a look at continuous light because I want to talk to you about that. So we've got a number of different things that I can show you about continuous light. Now, I'm using continuous lighting more and more and more, especially for bridal prep and stuff, and I will show you that once we get through when I go through the shots later on. But I just wanted to sort of show you these little things. Now, these all can run from power if you want to run them from power. And just to turn them on, basically, there's just a little switch at the back on these. And there's a temperature control that I can change if I want to, the temperature of these lights as well. Now, I love this one because this is fantastic just to give a little, you know, key light somewhere if you're doing an interview. Remember, I do fusion, so I'm doing photography and stills at the same time. So, you know, they're great to give a little fill somewhere. I also use this an awful lot sitting on tables where if the flowers, the bride's got the flowers there, I'll put them behind the actual table so I can light against the wall or something and give a little bit of separation. So they're great for that, you know, like in a dark corner, just stick it in the dark corner, add a bit of light in the dark corner. They're beautiful for that. You know, if you wanted to sort of do this, you know, add a little bit of fill that's there that can give you that little bit of fill behind. I mean, it's, you know, they're fantastic for that sort of thing. So that's one, and they're just running from these Sony batteries that you can get. They're the, which ones are they? They're the NP F960 or 970. The second one that I'll show you is this. So this has gone a bit bigger. Again, has the same type of features, except it has a diffusion panel at the back. This one here, I'm not sure what brand this is. It was a no-name brand I think I bought off eBay, I think. This one is an aperture one. This one is the, what's the model number of this one? HR672C. This can be put in groups. This comes with a remote control, so you can have multiple ones of these and have them in groups. There's a group thing at the back on here. There's a channel as well, so you can change channels. Your power will come up from this knob here. I'll just turn it on first. That's your on switch, obviously. Power comes from here. You can see that's maximum and then goes down to minimum. And this is your color temperature at your back. So you actually see that this, let me have a look. Yeah, your color temperature's there. So it's, like I said, it's incredibly important to have, if you can, that's pretty bright. It's incredibly important, if you can, to have color temperature control on these lights. Some of them have yellow filters that you can just put over the front, but I like to be able to dial it in because you can match the color very, very easily for the room. You know, these are amazing little lights. This one is really quite powerful, and again, I'll go at the back and I'll show you. I won't talk because I'll be too far away, but we can have a look and see what it looks like from the back. So you can see that you've got quite a bit of control with these. And what I love about the continuous lighting is that what you see is what you get. The difference with flash is you never really know until you fire off what you're going to get. Whereas this way, you actually see what you're going to get. But the problem is that these just never have enough real power to overpower the sun on a really bright day. And to be honest, if you're after that beautiful look with the iris open, you wouldn't use it in a studio, because the second you bring this light up too close to a person, it blinds you, and the model or whatever is going to be squinting. The iris in the eye is going to start to go really, really small, and it just doesn't look as nice as when you see that beautiful flattering light that you can get from the flash, because they don't squint and then they're not, you know, overpowered with this light. The other problem with this is if you wanted to use this too much for photography, it has to be very close to the actual talent that you're using, which causes an issue because you can't do environmental shoots, because you can't shoot very wide because they're going to have a flash that's involved. That's where I love to use the strobe, particularly like the Profotos and the Jimbai that I showed you, because you can be far enough away, there's enough power that they can step back and still give an environmental type shot. Ben said Rotolight is a Profoto of continuous lighting, also expensive but excellent lights. I'm going to show that in a minute, Ben, actually. So that's that lighting that I can show you. I'll put that down. The next one that I want to show you is the Neo Rotolight. These are good too because they have barn doors on them. Now, I buy barn doors for everything, and there's a reason for that, is that I can control, and I'll show you this on the back too. If I turn this on, again, I've got the brightness control that I can go from here down to 0. And this is your color temperature. And this is good because it actually shows you what your color temperature is. So if you have multiple ones of these, you can balance them exactly the same. And I've got a few of these. I've got 3 of these lights that I run. And I use these when I'm doing wedding receptions on either corner of the room to light up the wedding table for when they're doing speeches and things like that. I do also use them sometimes for portraits, but I use a different lighting system for that, and I'll show you that shortly. Again, if you're using the barn doors, why that's important, I'll show you on the back wall, is that I can control the light where it goes. So I'll just step back again and have a look. So you can see with that I can manipulate the light to go where I need it to actually go. But there's one interesting thing. Just let me check that again. I have noticed sometimes, and this is one of the issues with LEDs, because the lights, you get so many sort of individual LED lights, I don't think the light's as soft as what it could be, and you should probably use a diffuser there as well to get the light going through. But unless you've got something like the Innova, which is their new version, this isn't powerful enough to really go through a diffuser. But that can be a problem as well. But these are fantastic. But just make sure if you do get one of these that you do get the barn doors, because you can then control the temperature. This also has a lot of other features too. You can have this running like a police light. You can have filters that fit on the top. There's all different things, like it can flicker like a fire. So if you're after a bit of mood in video, these are fantastic. They're not cheap though. But that's what I use for the Neo Roto light. Now the other lighting system that I use is the ice light. Now this is my favourite lighting, to be honest. I absolutely adore these lights. This is an incredibly soft light. This is the closest thing that I've used that gives you almost like window light coming in through a window, and I think it's because of this diffused panel that comes up through here. Again, you've got a control on the back, that's your on-off button. Then you can control power up and down through here. The only thing with this is you can't control the color temperature. So what I have to do with this is I have to use a bit of diffusion, that same material, if I'm trying to match the light, and then that's why there's a rubber band on this, so that I can do that with it, and you'll see that it sort of comes on. Now again, like I said, I can bring this up or down. It's a gorgeous light. Plus, I love the looks people give you when you're doing weddings or whatever with these, and then they always think of it as a lightsaber, and people just love to see you working around with it. There's an extra battery that you can plug onto the bottom there. So I can screw that in onto the bottom, and it attaches through here. This will last, well, with this particularly, it lasts hours. These are a fantastic light, and like I said, I've got 3 of these, and I adore these, and I'll use these in multiple sessions with the bride in the morning, and I'll show you that when I start to go through my shoots. But it gives you a lovely, I'll just turn this down a little bit. It gives you a lovely, soft light, and it's stunning. You can just bring them over to light up from the hair. I often have my assistant, she'll be sort of behind the bride or groom, and she'll hold it behind them to give that separation from behind them. And I just adore this light. They're just amazing. And the other thing too, if you do buy these lights, they come with also a barn doors, because again, I can control where this light actually goes. I'll just turn it up a bit. And I'll show you on the back wall how this one can be controlled, because you can get some beautiful, really, really, very incredible sort of striking lighting coming up. So I'll show you down the back. So the control you have over that is fantastic for doing that beautiful thing. You can plug them into a stand at the bottom. The other thing too is, because I've got multiple ones of these, I've got 3 of them, you can screw them all in together. They actually have these attachments at the top here, so I can screw them all together, and then you have enough light to light up the whole body, because they're actually, around about, well, as tall as I am. They're massive when you put them all together. So they're really, really good. And like I said, this by far is my favourite lighting modifier that I use, and I use these extensively. I still love the Roto lights, but I just love these a bit more because I find them just that little bit softer. But again, it's all a personal preference, guys. I'm not saying what I use is right. It's just what I actually use for my business. Like I said, I'm just going to show you everything that I have, and you can make a decision on whether you'd like to go that way or, I mean, if you're starting out, you may just want to have just one of those smaller lights that I showed you if you're trying to start out. The main thing I'm saying to you is, don't go into too much debt trying to start your business, because there's too much stress involved in doing that. Build it up over a period of time. Start out with less gear, learn that so well, make a bit of money, and then use the money you're making to buy something that's a bit higher quality. Remember, you should build up rather than buying everything all in one go. I can justify it because I'm earning good money basically doing weddings, but and portraits. If I wasn't earning that sort of money, I wouldn't be buying the gear that I'm buying now, that's for sure, because it's very, very expensive. But, sort of think about that if you're doing it. I don't think there was any other lighting modifiers I was going to show you, because that sort of covers it about for that part. So tomorrow we're going to look at the modifiers that I use. So I'll show you some of the light modifiers that I use, and like I said, even though they'll be Profoto, I will be showing you some that are for the other systems. Have a look, and you can adapt the other lighting systems. They'll still have the same system, it's just that the mount's different. So we'll talk about those tomorrow. So please, guys, if you can, like I said, there's a lot of you watching, please give me a like, because I'd love more people to get involved in this discussion. I hope you're really getting something out of it. Let me just read some questions. So let's throw some questions up now. We'll do that now. I've said to Carl, yes, the ice light does mount on a stand, and I'll do that all the time. If you go back to my studio shoot of the glitter one, Ben, Carl, you'll see that I showed you how I used it in the studio, because I set them up with, I think there was 3 ice lights being used and 2 Neo Roto lights. So go back and check out the glitter shoot, and you'll see how they've been put on a stand. Ben said, I've been in the camera shops that have less stock. There's less stock than you. Thanks, Ben. That's funny. Ben I've worked with before, he's a bit of a character. He lives right near me, actually, in the same town, so we get on well. So any other questions, guys? Please throw them in and I'll answer them. Like I said, if you do have questions as well, please leave them down below, and I will get back to you after this discussion has finished. Thank you so much, Delta Dave. You just donated $10 to me. I really appreciate that, mate. Thank you so much. Any questions, leave them down below, and I will answer them. Like I said, I always answer everything. The other thing too is just make sure that you look around the same time. Like today I've done a little bit later. I may do it tomorrow around the same time. I'm not sure. The more people we get involved, the more people will learn from this. So, like I said, I'm giving you warts and all. So the things we'll look at over the coming weeks are things like how I shoot. I'll show you an actual wedding shoot that I go through, and I'll show you where I use the lenses and which cameras I use and things like that. We will get also onto the business side eventually as well, where I'll be showing you how I've built my website, how I get orders placed in, how contracts are done, what software I use and things like that. So we're going to go through everything. So it should be good for all of us to actually learn. So do you have any questions before we finish for the day? Otherwise, it'll be tomorrow. If you can think of any questions, if you're watching this afterwards, leave them down below, because I can address them. A stack of people have left questions as well. Your live timing is bad for Europe. I know. Sorry, it is. It's bad. It's hard for me to sort of work out the real good time. It's a bit weird. Like it's just lunchtime here, but I've tried things as well. Oh, thank you, Michael. Michael's just made a donation as well. Thank you so much, guys. That means so much to me. Yeah, it's hard to get a time where everyone can be involved, but I suppose the good thing is the information that I'm going to be handing out can still be viewed later on. That's not going to be an issue, I suppose, if you're watching it. It just means that you can't be involved in the discussion, which, can be a bit awkward for everyone. But yeah, I sort of have to do it when I can sort of fit it in between shoots and other things that I'm doing as well. I just put a shoot up the other day from the A6500 again, and I used the Batter lens on it. Have a check it out because it's so good, that camera. I'm amazed at the quality that lens has given me on the A6500. So have a look at that as well. Carl said, "Thank you for today's lesson, Professor Osler." It is a bit like going back to school, especially when I'm using the Photoshop whiteboard. But like I said, I did come from that. I taught at university for 20 odd years photography, so it's sort of second nature. But it's hard to write with this pen, and it looks a bit crap. But the information's still there, so that should be still fun. Any last questions, guys? Otherwise, I'm going to go and have some soup for lunch. It's a cold. It's 13 degrees here in Melbourne today, Celsius. It's freezing. And what would that be, about 60 something Fahrenheit? It's cold. We don't like the cold in Australia. Looks like that might be it for questions, I think. The shoot was amazing, you just mentioned. Oh, thanks, Tiny. You watched it, did you? Yeah, I was so happy with how that A6500 actually performed. So do check that out if you want to see how that's used. The funny thing is, I have had people, and I had one the other day talk to me. It was a troll, obviously, because I actually said to him, "Show me your work. Basically give me an example of what your work is," because he criticised something of mine. He never answered back, of course. Basically saying that if I was shooting professional work, I shouldn't be using the A6500. What a load of crap. Remember, it's the work that matters, and it's the image. The client, and I said this to that person, I said the client bought a massive poster from that image. So what you're talking about is rubbish. The people that I'm selling to don't give a hoot about what camera it was shot on. They just care that the image looks nice. This industry, for some reason, has the biggest amount of pixel peepers on earth. For God's sake, guys, don't get sucked in by the pixel peeping crowd. Just go by the image quality and what it is. There's nothing wrong with using the A6500 or any other camera, Fuji, Panasonic. There's nothing wrong with using any of those cameras. Like I said before, it's what's up there that matters. Your client is not going to care what you're shooting with. That's it. Ben, get back to work, because you obviously should be working, mate. And I'll see you all for tomorrow's talk. I'll probably do it at the same time I did today. And now, like I said, that'll be light modifiers tomorrow. I know, Michael, I agree with you. Haters, get a life. They just make me laugh. I get so many you wouldn't believe it. All right, guys, that's all for today. So much for keeping this really short. It's gone for a fair while, but I think hopefully it's good information that you've got out. And I'll pack all this stuff up into the storeroom, and I'll see you all tomorrow. So bye, guys. Have a great evening for everyone over there, and a great day for the people in the UK and Europe. I'm going to go have some lunch. Bye, guys.